I was commissioned as a project artist to work on the Station Quarter North project in 2012, and my role coming in at the outset of the project was to try to influence the design process by contextual studies that I might do in terms of research into the history of the site, or the social history of the site, the geography of the site, things that are influential elements that have shaped this space over the last 150 years, 200 years. One of the most striking elements about it is, if you were looking behind me 150 years ago, you would have seen a very different scene. It would have been a sort of genteel marine retreat, as it was described, looking out over the River Test estuary, which came right up to the spot where I'm standing, the shoreline, historic shoreline. There would have been a series of villas set out, people walking along the promenade along the shore. The railway would be coming through the tunnel and racing along the shoreline, and it would be all extremely picturesque. The footprint of this whole site, between 1846 and 1940, it had hardly changed, and then almost overnight through 1940, bombing in World War II caused such extensive damage that the site became almost a brownfield site. There was so little left. And it's only from the 1960s onwards that the new build has brought Overline House, which is behind me here, the station, built around 1966 and 1969, Wyndham Court, which is the same, brutalist building, Grade 2 listed now, housing development alongside this trio of office buildings that form Nelson Gate. In terms of the key influencing factors, there'd been an ill-fated canal project which was begun in 1795 and only lasted till 1808, and the canal actually ran, the Southampton-Salisbury Canal ran along Bleckenden Terrace. What we think is the filled-in basin of the canal forms Bleckenden Terrace as we know it today. So the history of water in the site, about how water is informed and transport has informed this site, is absolutely critical. It's always had this sort of evidence of transportation, of movement of people, of pedestrian movement. When the railway came here in 1847, it was set out along the mudflats of the River Test estuary. At high tide, the water would have been up to our ankles by now. Expansion and economic development of the docks here meant that the reclamation programme took out the whole of West Bay. All this contextual research that's been done has gone into the design process and the sort of long-term planning of the space. That's manifested itself in a number of things. One is use of materials. Throughout lot of the site we're using granite. We're using a multi-blend granite for lots of the paving areas. That has quite a sort of colourful appearance to it, and that's influenced a lot by the fact that the geology of this site is a river-based geology, if you like. You know, this whole area was informed by the Solent River Basin and the River Test. We're also proposing to use quite a lot of bespoke precast concrete for shapes such as retaining walls and seating and special sort of sculptural detailing, and that's there to evoke the topography and again the geography of the site, and the fact that this area has been informed by the movement of water. At the moment, the main and most distinctive element that you might pick up on as part of the interpretation is the detail called Canal Shore, which actually runs the whole length of Bleckenden Terrace, and this is a sculptural curb edge detail. It does two things. It's very, very strong. It also allows us to deliver a set of words and text about the history of the site as well. So where each strapline of text is positioned is critical to where the event might have happened or it was. So when you're walking along and you may just come across something in a sort of happenstance ad hoc way, it's sort of charged with the history of the area, and so it may refer to old architecture that was here, it may refer to a historic detail. It may even be something that was just part of the sort of oral history of the site that people just talk about and remember, and it's never actually been written down. The letters are all cut out of white granite, or light grey white granite, and that's inset into the black basalt. In the subsequent phases, we'll see retaining walls, seating, more sculptural retaining structures for trees and planting, and all of those are generally informed by the geography of the site. This site has no doubt changed enormously over the past 100, 150 years, but what is significant is that the historic evidences are still there, and they form the key part of my interpretation of the site. This is a contemporary space, and it's used to deliver contemporary transport systems, so it has to get hundreds of thousands of people through every year, through the station, onto public transport, pedestrian links, east to west and north to south through the city, and it's completely fit for purpose.